Hey, welcome in.
Welcome to the Arrowhead Addict podcast.
We are here coming to you live.
The Kansas City Chiefs are going to the Super Bowl. You only win a Super Bowl 2 times every 5 years, right? Oh! The warm-up act is over. Let's bring in Melissa Etheridge, massive Chiefs fan. Melissa,
Super Bowl champion, 2-time Pro Bowler, and Trent Green. Trent Green, how you doing?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
And he picked it up! He picked it up! He's gonna score!
and we'll see you next week. But until then, as always, go Chiefs.
Welcome into the Arrowhead Addict podcast on this Tuesday edition. Sterling Holmes, JB Brisco, Josh Brisco. You can follow him on the X at JB Brisco, myself at Homestretch KC. We're back, baby. We took a week off. We were busy boys. I was a busy man. I was in Florida being Florida man. It was outstanding. I watched Chiefs games, which makes those debacles, which is funny. We're calling wins debacles now. That's how far the Chiefs have gone as far as from just a few years ago. But it's way more entertaining to watch said games with beer in hand from a hot tub in Florida outside watching said game when they struggle to stop a nosebleed, aka Aiden O'Connell. But it's going to be back. I love coming back to snow. It's lovely.
I think that on Aiden O'Connell's Pro Football Reference page, it should include the nosebleed as his nickname, because I think you could say the Chiefs defense could not stop a nosebleed in that circumstance. Aiden O'Connell, the nosebleed. I think that's wonderful. I was not in Florida this week, but I'm still happy to be here, just out here grinding it out. I was ready on Tuesday. Do I need to be here to do a show with the one and only Sterling Holmes? Is what I texted Sterling like 30 minutes before showtime. And so, you got to stay ready so you don't have to get ready. Today, we both stayed ready, and I think that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I do want to say behind the curtain before we actually get into the show, a lot to get into. Whole bunch I want to actually get into here. But what I found hilarious was I forgot to tell Brisco no show on Tuesday. Yeah. I thought we talked about it after the show, but maybe we didn't.
I don't remember that happening. That's okay.
But it's okay. Either way, Brisco texts me like 30 minutes before the show. I am many beers deep. I am all of a sudden going, oh crap. Did I tell no one I'm gone? And I was started to panic. Next thing I know, I go, I don't care. I'm many beers deep. I don't give a hoot. So I text Richard and go, hey, no show.
You brushed the bath salts off your face and texted Richard, and
here we are.
You know what I just finished doing, Stu? You know what I just finished doing just now? Just about 5 minutes ago? Been working on this hard for about an hour, a little more than that. I can send you pictures if you want.
Brett Favre.
I replaced my kitchen faucet.
Okay. Nice.
It's sort of a phallic, shaped household item. And we'd had a little bit of a leaky faucet in our kitchen sink for, honestly, I've repaired that little thing on multiple occasions in recent years. But I thought, you know what I want? We got this big, sweet stainless steel sink, like tub. Like we're talking like kitchen grade, like industrial kitchen grade size sink. I love it. But our faucet did not match. So I went and I got a stainless steel, shop sink with the big spring neck on it. I can now, I tested this after I got it installed. The gooseneck, the big gooseneck with the winding spring around it, though. So very industrial, matching you've seen our kitchen. We got a very open, sort of modern industrial vibe to the whole deal. I can now get the sink not only to all four corners of the faucet to all four corners of the sink, no problem. I can get it pretty much across our entire countertop over there. I could put out a fire on the stove top. I could clean any pot or pan. I was under the sink like a real homeowner, under there just getting my hands dirty, turning off the water levels, wiping up some spillage. It was a really edifying experience. And I felt like people generally enjoy hearing when I get to tell them about the manly homeowner thing that I've done. And today I replaced a kitchen sink.
Yeah.
Well, the faucet.
Yeah, because everything about you screams manly. So
I know that's why I think that's why the story is worth telling. If I'm trying to think of who the manliest person that we know is, but we work in sports media, so there is
Ron
a relative.
Swanson.
Well, I was going to go for a real person we know, but really making my point for me, you picked a fictional character. But sure, if Ron Swanson saddled up to his office there in the Parks and Rec department, he said, I replaced a kitchen faucet yesterday, I wouldn't even ask a follow-up question because I would assume he was just saying something he does most days. For me, when I tell you I was under the sink like a old-fashioned, old-timey, it was a perfect Norman Rockwell painting of a plumber, except I wasn't wearing any pants. Once I got that thing hooked up, it was special. I just wanted to share that visual with the audience.
What was special was hopefully DJ Humphries being the left tackle. Now,
Stick to sports, says Sterling.
Yeah, I'm sticking to sports.
You have nothing for me on the faucet thing? We used to do real nonsense together, Sterling. Something's changed.
There's a lot we got to get to. Okay, there's a lot.
This game was on Friday. No, there isn't.
I've been gone for a week.
Fair.
I have bleep. I have that I want to talk about. Okay. So
I thought maybe I
could
carry
talk about
the content burden to try to talk about my faucet so you could take a little bit of a break, but
no,
apparently you didn't appreciate that.
All in. A couple comments to get to. Ronson Trait, yes, says, are there Wanye goggles finally coming off? Yeah, dude. They're coming off. I was wrong. You're right. You're goggles. Sexy. I'm ugly. You're smart. I'm dumb. No, but Wanye, I think, was fine for the majority of the season. Again, didn't say good. I think Wanye was fine. The last 2 weeks, Wanye Morris has not been fine. Wanye Morris has been an abstract disaster. It has been somehow worse than Briscoe's faucet story. I don't know how, but it was. You fixed your faucet? There was a leaky faucet. You fixed it. I want the Chiefs to fix their leaky faucet, which is their tackle positions.
In fairness, and in an extra gold star to Wanye Morris, at least he got his over with quickly. He was losing in 1-2 seconds. I took several minutes to explain my faucet story.
So, yeah, I'm off it, man. Like, because he has been fine. He's not been good, but he's been fine. The last 2 weeks against horrible, for the most part, bad pass rushes, he has been atrocious. Max Crosby is elite. Max Crosby is outstanding. I'm not knocking him for losing to Max, but when you get your ass kicked by the Carolina Panthers, I have major concerns. I'm not talking looking average or below. I'm talking looking brutal and unplayable. Now, I think it came to a boiling point. It came to a head when all of a sudden, guy goes around him. Mahomes just goes right down like a lump of coal down a chimney who you're giving to a bad kid. And he just gets up, nearly spikes the ball, realized where he's at because he goes, I'm Patrick Mahomes, the billion-dollar quarterback. I probably shouldn't spike the football right now. But you saw the anger permeating through him. And after that play, it was done. Whether it was Andy Reid, Andy Heck, I don't give a hoot nor a holler. I'm going with Patrick Mahomes was the guy that made the decision saying Wanye is not going back in there. So we saw Joe Tooney go out to left tackle. We saw Mike Caliendo go in and play left guard. And I don't know that's what you want. No, I know that's not what you want, but that's probably the way the Chiefs are going to roll until DJ Humphries is ready to go. Now, going into DJ Humphries, I'm sorry to get on a roll like Cottonelle right now, Brisco, but I got to get this off my chest.
Go ahead, baby.
When Sam McDowell asked Andy Reid point blank at the presser, so you have not made a decision on who is starting at left tackle. You know what Andy said? No, we haven't made a decision yet. That would be unfair to DJ. Not unfair to Wanye Morris. Yep. Not unfair to Kingsley Suamataia. Unfair to DJ. What does that tell you? If DJ Humphries is healthy, he is the starting left tackle now.
That was also my number one takeaway of press conferences yesterday. We are on the exact same question, on the exact same quote. When Andy Reid says, I don't think that would be fair to DJ, he is protecting his player on two levels, both physical and mental, right? It's not a wide receiver in an Andy Reid offense, so I understand. I don't know where exactly the sweet spot of this is, but you do have to acknowledge this is a new offense for DJ Humphries. Again, his job on a pass pro set is generally protect Patrick Mahomes, right? But there are some intricacies, and a lot of it I'm sure he's seen before. He's a veteran, but it is a new offense, and it is a new guard next to him, and it's a new quarterback behind him. We talk about offensive line chemistry in training camp. All of a sudden, you get late into the season, you need an emergency help at left tackle. All of a sudden, bleep chemistry, get out there. Well, it still matters. It really does. However, I took the exact same message that you did there from what Andy Reid said. He also didn't say it'd be unfair to Joe Thuney, who, he left the door open that maybe he could start at left tackle if necessary. What I think Andy Reid's doing there is protecting Humphreys, because if he said on Monday, yes, if he's ready, DJ will start. Andy Reid never says anything like that on a Monday, but just, humor me. If on Monday, Andy Reid says DJ Humphreys will start if he's able. Now, all of a sudden, the onus for that is completely on DJ Humphreys. And that's not a great way to begin your official relationship with this guy, right? He came in, he did a great press conference. Seems like his attitude is fantastic. Like, he's a good guy to have around there, just nailing everything. You don't want Andy Reid to go out there and say, yeah, as long as the big softy's knee's okay, we'll roll him out there. Like, that's of course, a horrible thing to do. So in opposition to that, Andy Reid says, I don't want to tell you if DJ Humphreys will be ready next week definitively, because it's early in the week and he's been here for like 2 or 3 practices. But just to fully co-sign your read on it, he said, I'm not naming a left tackle because I don't think it would be fair to name DJ Humphreys the starting left tackle, which implies 100% to me that's the goal. That's the hope. Now, look, also, before that Raiders game, I would have gone ahead and bet that maybe Humphreys would be active against the Chargers, one game after being inactive last week after just a couple of practices. I thought maybe he'd be active on Sunday night, but you'd really hope you don't have to put him out there. Maybe don't even activate him. Give him one more game and then debut him against the Browns. My expectation for that changed by the fact, not just that he lost the way that he did, or not just the way that he lost, but the quickness with the losses and the fact that the Chiefs did pull him just like they did late in the fourth quarter with Kingsley back in week 2.
Yeah. Gary says Thuney got pushed back into Mahomes every pass play when playing left tackle, not the solution. I'm actually with you. I don't think Thuney was great. I think it was better, right? It was better.
Also can't, I'm glad Gary made that point, because it's good to know that Thuney didn't go over there and immediately stop all pressure. Also, we cannot judge Joe Thuney as a left tackle based off 6 snaps.
100%.
Now, the funny thing is he practicing at left tackle this week? If he's going to be your left tackle, you'd like him to practice at left tackle. But if DJ Humphreys is going to be your left tackle, you want him practicing next to Joe Thuney. So
yes.
The Chiefs have to have that decision made behind closed doors right now. I think they do. I think it's Humphreys.
Yeah. Okay. So I do want to talk about Andy Heck versus Brett Veach, and I'm not trying to who's to blame or who needs to be fired. No, that's not what I'm doing. Let's be real. The Chiefs are still 11-1. They're still the back-to-back Super Bowl champions. Somehow the Chiefs are 11-1. I don't know. It's the variance matrix has somehow gone all the Chiefs' way. I don't always like using the word luck. I think variance is probably the better way of putting it, maybe because of the betting market, all that stuff. The Chiefs have done a lot to also help that, including Nick Bolton falling on that football. How many times do you see that exact play happen? No one falls on it. Well, the fact that Nick Bolton was heads up enough to actually fall on the football, that was a big reason why the Chiefs got the ball back. I want to talk about all that and more. But before we do all of that, Underdog, baby.
Oof.
Yeah, you know about Underdog. All about Underdog. Make sure you download the app today and use code Arrowhead Addict, all one word. If you do that, you can get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly. Again, code Arrowhead Addict, all one word, to get to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly. It is super easy. Select higher or lower on your favorite players and cash in right there on Underdog. I was using Underdog all week, and I had to use it in Florida. I was using it in Florida, and I had an absolute blast using Underdog. And one of my favorite things they do is the injury protection. Used it last night as well. Was it Monday night? No.
Last night was Monday night, yeah.
Did someone get injured? No, it wasn't last night. It was the Trevor
Niners
Lawrence
all got
game.
hurt on Sunday night.
Well, I did get some back with CMC, but I got some back with Trevor Lawrence, right? I love the injury protection because I had I had higher on the yardage of Trevor Lawrence. Well, what happened? He got injured. He got a cheap shot. He got taken out. What happened? He's out of the game. Almost any other site you would bet on, what happens? You lose that money. What happens to Underdog? Boop. They're going to save you. Boop. So Underdog saved me. That's another big reason. Don't make it so hard on yourself. Make it easier. Make it easier with Underdog. Yeah, baby. Higher or lower, you make the call. Boop. Must be 18 plus, 19 plus in Alabama, Nebraska, 19 plus in Colorado for some games, 21 plus in Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Concern with your play. Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. Arizona 1-800-NEXT-STEP 1-800-639-8783 or text next step 2533342. New York code 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY or 467-369.
You're so good at that.
That might be a 9.5.
That was a really good one. That was a really good
9.5. Yeah. Okay.
Proud of you.
So now that we've all identified the question here, okay, we have all identified what the issue is with the Chiefs offense. Because I actually want to say, I think Patrick's been playing really good football. I think Patrick Mahomes has really turned it on since the first half of the season when we're all wondering what's going on with Patrick. Why is he struggling? Why is he missing? He's got time. Why is he going into pressure? Why? All of that stuff. That is all put aside for me right now because I think Patrick is playing really good football. And it's a bummer because that's not being talked about. It's not being talked about because of the issues of the offensive line. So we know the issues. It's right tackle with Jawan, which we'll get to in a second, but more specifically, it's left tackle. So us just talking about the issue in this minute way, I don't think solves a whole bunch. We know the issue. We kind of understand what the solution is going to be. Hopefully DJ Humphries. If not DJ, then it is the emergency of Joe Thuney. It is back to Wanya Morris because I still think Wanya is better than Kingsley at this point.
I agree.
Overall, of the entire sample size. And
if the Chiefs disagreed, Kingsley would have come in instead of Thuney on Sunday or on Friday.
Correct. And the snowball effect, I do think, is real. It happened with Kingsley. It happened with Wanya Morris. One bad thing happens. You're in your dome. Once you're in your dome, you lose. But how did we get to this point? How did the Chiefs get to this point of not Kingsley, not Wanye, not Donovan Smith, not David Bakhtiari, but potentially a guy like DJ Humphries? How did they get to this point? And who's to blame? Because I've seen a lot. Again, when I say who's to blame, I'm not calling for anyone's job. I'm not sitting here saying, Brett Veach, this was a massive blunder, or Andy Heck, this was a massive blunder. Okay? That's not necessarily what I'm trying to do. They are still 11-1. And as Lauren points out in the chat, says hard to get an elite young left tackle drafting at 32. You're correct. That's also part of the equation here, okay? But I've seen a lot of people either blame Andy Heck for not developing, or it can't be Andy Heck's fault. He's untouchable. Look at all he's done with Nick Allegretti and Andrew Wiley. Look how he helped with Eric Fisher and Mitchell Schwartz in the development of Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith. Both things can be true. Now, I'll tell you where I land on here, Brisco, before we go any further. I am team Andy Heck is a really good offensive line head coach. Not head coach, offensive line coach. I'm not going to sit here and tell you with a straight face that he's the best. That'd be lying. I don't look at every single offensive line coach in the NFL, okay? I don't. So I'd be lying to you. But I think the blame for me lies more so on Brett Veach than Andy Heck. I think Andy Heck does have a long enough track record of traditionally getting the best out of players. He's been here 12 years now. We have a long enough sample size to see who and what Andy Heck can do. We've seen him elevate a lot of players. The one pushback we're going to get a lot on, it's going to be Jawan Taylor because he's not improved since he's came to Kansas City. The penalties have been a massive issue. Some of that is the last 2 years with the emphasis on how he's lining up. But he was always a heavily penalized player in Jacksonville. But if you look at PFF, he was never good in Jacksonville. Where people got this, he's going to be an elite right tackle, a stud player, was always beyond me. So I don't know if I blame Andy Heck as much for not getting the best out of Jawan Taylor rather than me believing this is just who Jawan Taylor is. So I'm going to concede the floor to you for a while because I've talked a lot here. But my point here with the offensive line and how we got here, I almost tend to, again, think this is more Brett Veach's doing of the struggles at tackle rather than Andy Heck not getting the best out of his guys.
Yeah, and I think the only way to really answer that is to revisit the process. I know I'm immediately changing the topic, but like the wide receiver discourse is pretty easy. Last year, Connor Embry took a whole lot of flack because they weren't getting the most out of their wide receivers. But also, this season arrives, and you go, oh, well, I don't know. There was a lot to get out of Kadarius Toney or Sky Moore. Meanwhile, for the Chiefs this year, you have terrible, terrible injury luck. It takes first Hollywood Brown and then Rashee Rice out of the picture. Hopefully, Hollywood's back soon. The reason that I go there is because I think that the tackle position has something similar, and I it's not simply injury luck, but I do think it's some of the stuff that's incredibly hard to do consistently. It's why even the really, really good general managers should not be considered beyond reproach, because it is almost impossible to hit 100% of the time. So for the Chiefs tackle situation, drafting Wanya Morris in the 3rd round last year was an objectively good move. I can say objectively because he played good enough football in Donovan Smith's absence last year that the offense wasn't completely cut out from underneath Patrick Mahomes. It was sufficient. To the majority of this year, Wanya Morris was sufficient and then had a total meltdown on Friday that we all saw. The Kingsley pick, I think, is a little bit of at least for right now, the Kingsley pick hits me from a coaching side of things that also coincides with Wanya Morris getting hurt in training camp. The fact that Kingsley ended up being their week one starter, that isn't a Brett Veach problem. Brett Veach gives you these players, and then you decide when they're ready for these different opportunities. Maybe in training camp, the Chiefs could have called for Donovan Smith, although I don't know that he wanted to be playing football in training camp. And they always knew that was going to be an option in emergency, break glass. I didn't want them to sign a veteran in training camp, though, because I wanted Kingsley and Wanya to get every possible rep. I liked the Kingsley pick at the time because it was a gamble on, now follow me here, everybody, a very young rookie with incredible skill sets and very, very little in terms of NFL polish. Now, again, that was the scouting report when the Chiefs selected him, and Brett Veach turned in the card. Andy Reid knew that. Andy Reid was involved in that process. Andy Heck was involved in that process. This didn't catch any of them by surprise. I think the miscalculation at the beginning of the year was them watching Kingsley and saying, all right, we think he's going to be ready to get in there and to be Patrick Mahomes' blindside protector in his first NFL game. And obviously, he wasn't. The second game ended up being the one that does him in. Wanya Morris, I think, has pretty much been the guy the Chiefs drafted. I think he overachieved on some level last year. And
Sure.
Frankly, I think he's not on the injury report right now. He hasn't been for weeks. I have on pretty good authority that knee injury is still impacting him in some way. Now, look, the biggest issue with yes, and it's going to be chirping at him for a while.
Yes.
The issue on Friday was that he kept losing on the exact same move. He sticks his outside hand in the middle of your chest. Defensive end can just swipe that hand right away, and all of a sudden it is essentially a free rush to Patrick Mahomes. That can't happen. That's a technique problem. I promise you, Andy Heck was telling Wanya Morris, hey man, mix it up. Like that over the course of the last year and a half, almost 2 years as a Chief, he has not been getting told, like, no, just punch him with one hand all the time and they won't be able to knock your hand away. So that's a Wanya Morris problem. Is that, and I think Andy Reid talked about it, snowballing. Mentally, physically, it all snowballed on Wanya, and he could not come through in that moment. Kingsley could not do that in week 2. Kingsley could not do that in relief of an injured Wanya Morris who had to return to the game to finish it a few weeks back. The alternative would have been what? Again, Bakhtiari and Donovan Smith were not showing up in training camp. DJ Humphries was not ready to show up to practice until a week ago. I think what the Chiefs gambled on here, and maybe it's the reason that I am critical of Brett Veach on a regular basis. I would like to talk about sometime this offseason. I'd like to talk about all of the Chiefs' first round draft picks of under Brett Veach, and to really talk about maybe the first couple of rounds. We're not totally sample size nitpicking. I'd like to talk about how the Chiefs have spent their premium assets, because I think it's a little bit overinflated by how right they got it in the first round in 2017. That has solved so many other issues for this team, obviously. Yeah. The pass rush, I think, is a little bit of a Brett Veach problem, or maybe a little bit of a Clark Hunt problem. We can talk about that some other time. But at tackle, at this point for me, I think Kingsley was even less pro-ready than they expected. Wanya Morris got hurt early on. They've got another developmental tackle on the active roster in Ethan Driscoll because they think that he has something to tap into. Lucas Niang is still on the practice squad. He hasn't gotten the call up yet. and they bring in DJ Humphries as soon as he's available, because this was as soon as he was ever going to be available. Humphries wasn't a, 5th round draft pick at the trade deadline to make up for your mistake. Joshua Uche was a future 6th, and Cam Thomas before the season was an upcoming 7th. He's a Brown now, I think. So in the realm of like legitimate misses, I really can kind of look at the left tackle situation without having a definitive villain. It's a lot of unlucky, kind of poor bottom third of outcomes results across the board. And that's really frustrating. Right tackle, I also like Jawaan Taylor's tape fine. His contract was okay to me at the time. I was not overjoyed by it, but you're going to pay one tackle and then try to get the other one through the draft. The math of how the offensive line was going to shake out made sense. But like, I wasn't a huge fan of the Joe Thuney contract. That ended up being a better use of money, but you're still paying a ton of money to a guard, right? So the way that all of those pieces come together, I just don't think that you can evaluate any of them in a vacuum, because they are so interconnected. And look, right now, I would take back the money from the Jawaan Taylor contract, given the opportunity. These 2 years have not lived up to that. Although, without the penalties this season, when he had kind of a cleaner stretch of football, he looked like a $20 million lineman, not a 25 or 30, but he was like, yeah, a lot of those guys that hit true free agency, they end up making that kind of money. The problem there is that the Chiefs paid true free agency premium for Jawaan Taylor when he really did have 31 other options, or, he had all of free agency. So they paid through the nose on him, much like they did for Thuney. So all of that to say, I don't hold a ton of anger about the left tackle position. But I think that going to get Humphries now, if Humphries never got cleared, I think Donovan Smith would be on this football team right now. I'll say that.
I don't want to keep hitting on Jawaan Taylor too much right now, because I think everyone understands where my viewpoint was initially. Even I'm not saying revisionist. I'm saying initially I was not a fan. You don't pay a right tackle that Lane Johnson money when he's clearly not Lane Johnson. You don't pay him like a legitimately top five left tackle for a middling right tackle. That to me never made any sense. I will never get that. Joe Thuney, I can understand because he's the best guard in football. I'm okay.
Positional value, though. I mean, that's just gonna, that kind of stuff's gonna happen all the time.
I get that. There's a little bit of some disagreement between you and me, which is completely fine. Okay. But Jawaan Taylor has given up 6 sacks in the last 4 games. Everyone is blaming left tackle. I get it. I'm done. This is my apology to everyone who's been coming at me a little bit, because I for the longest time I said Wanye's fine. He was until that was no longer true anymore. Yeah, he the last 2 weeks, but he had 8 pretty good weeks of football. Correct, but the last 2 he's been unplayable. Okay. Yeah. But everyone is glossing over Jawaan Taylor, 6 sacks in the last 4 games. Yeah. 6. 4 games. Look at the teams. We're not talking about going up against the prime San Francisco 49ers in this, or the Eagles. Like, this is my issue. Again, this is not me trying to call for anyone or complain too much. Again, people that have seen me, I don't get typically extremely angry or worked up or over the top, because the Chiefs are 11-1. I'm normally the voice of reason, telling folks to calm down. Again, though, I just feel like this is a little different than last year. Although last year the Chiefs were 11-6. Christmas Day happened, and we thought the entire season is over. Again, the Chiefs are somehow still well ahead of schedule. But I think we can all understand this does not feel as sustainable. Last year was easy to point to the wide receivers. That was kind of it, wasn't it? Maybe I'm misremembering and thinking.
Wande Morris was playing left tackle around that time last year.
But he was fine though last year. That wasn't the issue. The issue last year was pretty much one specific spot. It was wide receivers. They were just that bad. Mm-hmm. But then they figured it out in the Super Bowl, or in the playoffs, so it was okay. My issue is you have 2 holes right now in the offensive line. If Jawaan Taylor plays like this, 20 million or not, that's a bad player. 6 sacks in 4 games with those penalties, that's a bad player. You have no idea what left tackle is. Again, maybe DJ Humphries comes in and everything is fine. But that's where my concern level is now compared to even last season. I see 2 spots on the offensive line that's an issue. The wide receivers I'm actually fine with, and they're getting back reinforcements. That's great. That's outstanding. The running game, They got back Isaiah Pacheco. We finally saw some electricity, a long run, 34 yards. I know the other 13 carries between him and Kareem Hunt amassed to about 2 yards a carry. Not ideal.
No.
But still, something to keep in mind. Some electricity was back. But then you're also having this issue on the secondary in defense with CB2. But it's not just the lack of Najee Johnson or Josh Williams or Keith Taylor or Christian Roland Wallace. It's all of a sudden that Justin Reed, who not been great in coverage traditionally, but he makes up for other ways. All of a sudden, he looks like he's lost a step and he's getting torched. All of a sudden, Brian Cook still does not look the same from that ankle injury. All of a sudden, Shamari Connor, his fault or not, keeps going one-on-one with guys when he cannot keep up with fast wide receivers, but he keeps getting put in that situation. And then it's not just that. No one wants to talk about it. Past 4 weeks or so, maybe even 5, Trent McDuffie has really struggled. He played pretty good against Buffalo, but you take that game out, teams are almost picking on Trent McDuffie right now. I never thought I would say that. You almost want to move him back into the slot because he is such a all-pro lockdown slot corner. We've put him on the outside. The Chiefs have put him on the outside. It's not just that Cortland Sutton game. I don't know about you, but it feels like even Trent McDuffie is now struggling. Again, the Chiefs are still 11-1. They're still finding ways, but I almost seemingly find myself saying there's more cracks in the foundation this year than last. Not saying they won't win the Super Bowl. I just think I have more concerns.
I think what happened right there is Jalen Watson broke his ankle and knocked down the first domino.
Yeah.
I don't think that Trent McDuffie is any worse of a football player right now than he was last year. I really am for McDuffie. I am kind of calling it the Cortland Sutton game. And then, he's a bad matchup for Brock Bowers. Everybody is, but especially Trent McDuffie. His strength is not going to be to follow an alien, big, athletic tight end outside and then to cover him in space. The essentially Trent McDuffie's scouting report going into the draft was like, he's elite, but just as long as there's no like 4-armed alien that he has to cover outside who's 6'6" and runs a 4.5, as long as he doesn't run into that guy, he'll be okay. And Brock Bowers is essentially that guy, right? So what I think is happening throughout, especially the defense, and I think this is true to some extent on the offensive side. Also, Trey Smith actually has a worse pass blocking grade this year than Juwan Taylor, just to add another thing to the mix per PFF's pass protection grade.
But also a great call that, again, I think the offensive line outside of Creed and Joe has been a little shakier in pass protection people overall, not just one guy. That was also part of my point, but go ahead.
And with that in mind, there were also, I think we're largely out of the woods on this one, but there were also weeks where Patrick Mahomes was making life harder for his pass protecting offensive lineman, or when he did have time, he wasn't using it. Again, I think he's had a better few weeks specifically in that regard as of late. But I really think on defense, it's very easy to track how this happens. And it's why I do hold out hope that maybe a big back half of the year from Joshua Williams saves a lot of things. So McDuffie in particular, he's this team's best outside cover corner by a mile. He's a very, very good outside cover corner, but he's the best slot cover guy in football.
Yes.
And the Chiefs right now have one of the lesser slot cover guys in football on their side because Shamari Connor is not that guy.
Just sorry to cut you off right here.
Oh, you're good.
Would you almost compare it to Joe Tooney? Like, Joe Tooney's the best left guard in football. You move him to left, tackle. He's better than what you have currently on the roster. But because that's kind of what Trent McDuffie, to an extent, that's kind of what it's been. He's the best slot corner in football. As far as the outside corner, he's the best on the team. But I don't know if that's the best spot to put him in.
To some extent, the fact that McDuffie did spend a ton of time on the outside last year, I think makes that a little bit incongruous. It'd be like saying that Joe Tooney played tackle on third downs, and was already very good at that, but he played guard on first and second downs because McDuffie and Snead were your outside guys. And then in sub packages, McDuffie kicks to the interior and he's great there. So it's not like he was only playing in the slot last year. Would be my one addendum there. But the way that these dominoes all fall is if you had Jalen Watson still playing at the level he was playing at, again, when McDuffie was not a problem on the outside. And I don't really think he's a problem still. But when you have Jalen Watson out there, all of a sudden you have Watson and McDuffie who no longer need as much help from behind them as Najee Johnson has needed, as Joshua Williams typically needs. Whenever you have Joshua Williams and Jalen Watson both playing good football, I think there's a world in which Trent McDuffie can stay in the slot some, and you let Williams and Watson handle some of those outside duties if you have a specific matchup. In maybe this week with Ladd McConkey is going to be an interesting one. I'd rather Trent McDuffie be covering Ladd McConkey. I think that's a pretty good matchup for McDuffie, right? Size-wise and all of that. But I cannot have Shamari Connor covering Ladd McConkey in this game. I can't do it. It will end this thing more quickly than an early halftime. I can't let that happen. So if you have Watson and Williams both on the outside, allowing McDuffie to knock back into the slot, now Shamari Connor's free to go back and do his free safety roaming kind of thing, either deeper in the backfield, or he's able to come up in the box and be one of those deadly blitzers off the edge, as is McDuffie. All of a sudden now you have Justin Reed and Brian Cook being able to play where they are best fit, which is different for their respective roles. And Spags asks them to do different things. They do different things at a pretty high level. And if you have all of your secondary now kind of back in their original positions, doing the things that they do best, as opposed to the things that they are forced to do in this defense right now, now all of a sudden you've made life easier for your defensive line. And now the pass rush looks a little bit better. And so I really think that we're in a little bit of, if you give a mouse a cookie, I just didn't think Jalen Watson's ankle was going to be that thing. But if you break Jalen Watson's ankle, the Chiefs might not win the Super Bowl. That's the front and last page of this book right now.
Well, and it's kind of like the Buccaneers. Again, I hate making excuses for injuries because every team goes through injuries.
Sure.
Every single team. So I think it's, to an extent, a losing battle. I mean, you look at the 49ers, you've seen what injuries have done to absolutely decimate that team time and time again this year. I do want to talk some positive stuff with you because I do think there's some positives we can start talking about that I don't want to end on a sour note. Again, sky's not falling. Chiefs are 11-1. They're okay. They have a quarterback who is finally playing like the best quarterback in football yet again. Again, I firmly believe the first half of the season, Mahomes was playing like a 10 to 15 range. I mean, he was getting outplayed by guys like Sam Darnold the first like 6 games. The space-time continuum was somehow messed up. It made no sense. Now he's playing like the Patrick we know and love. I think some of the play calls have actually been fairly solid. Again, I don't love going away from the run so early, but I think some of the passing mechanisms and schemes have been actually pretty impressive. And again, that's with a lot of injuries on that side as well.
Here's a positive, something big that popped up that happened on Friday. Do you know what happened on Friday with the wide receivers?
Oh, I heard about Hollywood Brown, baby.
No. A guy who played. Xavier Worthy became the highest snapped wide receiver for the 2024 Kansas City Chiefs. I didn't realize this going into the game, but thank you. He and Justin Watson were apparently tied because after the game, Worthy got 10 more snaps than Watson, and now he is 10 snaps ahead. So I would like to see that trend continue. There is growth to be had there. There's just a fun fact I wanted to share because I don't know that I ever believed that we would see the day this year that Xavier Worthy would out-snap Justin Watson.
Yeah. I've seen a few comments on this, and I think it's a fun conversation to have. And again, I will say, when this happened a lot last year, it was Christmas. It was nearly playoff time, and we all thought the season was over. There was not much time to adjust, and the Chiefs adjusted. I almost think this year, again, while I do think there might be more holes or more cracks in the foundation, they have a longer landing period, right? If you're landing a plane, you got some time to figure that thing out. You can coast for a while if you need to. That engine might be blown, but you're coasting. You're high enough up. You can cruise that thing down, which is some positives. And I want to see if I can find this question in here. Ruben asked this. Do you guys think Spags is moving guys around to see what they can do? And I've seen, some other questions about, Shamari Connor, and you're putting guys out of position. You're putting Shamari Connor as a safety, as a cornerback almost. I do wonder how much of that there is, because they did start the year with Shamari at slot, right? That was the move.
Not exclusively. Let me get you his snap. His snap counts are fascinating.
I did. So, but that's okay. So you pulled the snap counts because this is what I was looking at a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, those will take me a second.
He was progressively going down at slot corner. And then Christian Roland Wallace took over. And then Christian Roland Wallace started to slowly go down. The issue is the Chiefs and Spagnuolo, they're trying different things. The issue is nothing is stuck. I'm fine with them trying things because they're trying things right now and are still the first seed in the AFC, which the AFC has been pretty darn good. Right? I mean, we can at least start there. The Chiefs are trying things and they're still winning football games. Very close football games, but you'd rather win close football games than lose close football games. So I do think there is something to that. They're trying more Jaden Hicks now. The addition of Jaden Hicks, right? It's not necessarily coming at a loss to Brian Cook or Justin Reed. It's more of an addition on the field because you're right. They are playing a lot of only 2 cornerback sets. They're not adding that third corner. It's Trent and a guy. It's Trent and what most likely is going to be this upcoming game, Joshua Williams. I think there is something to that. And that's why I think you might see some busts or breaks in the secondary or maybe even some confusion at times. If you want to be positive, I do think the Chiefs are trying things to see what sticks.
So Joshua Williams got hurt against the Niners in week 7, right? It was right after the bye. Here's where Trent McDuffie, I'm going to give you how many slot alignment snaps that Trent McDuffie took at the beginning of the season, okay? Or just throughout the year. This is the number of times that Trent McDuffie lined up in the slot as a defender through the first 6 weeks of the year. 21, 22, 18, 11, 19, 9 against the 49ers, 1, 0, 0, 3, 0, 1. He got pulled out of the slot because the Chiefs lost one of those guys they were comfortable having on the outside. Shamari Connor, slot snaps, okay? 27, 14, 25, 18, 11, 10 against the Niners, then 7 in week 8, or which I don't know what was going on game plan wise there. Not as many snaps for him overall. He missed some time in that game, maybe. And then after that, 18, 33, 44, 37, 40. Yeah. Shamari Connor has lived in the slot, specifically in these last 4 weeks, career highs in back-to-back weeks, and then rivaling that number in the 2 weeks since. And that has not gone well. His coverage grade in those 4 weeks, 59, 64, 49, 43. Yeah. That's not where you want to be.
Well, we all know the Raiders have a great passing attack, right? We know
right. That. In that, and again, like with a DB lined up against Brock Bowers is different than just different Raiders slot guy from the past, different than losing to Hunter Renfrow. Like those are totally different types of players. So when Brock Bowers is in the slot, I'm willing to give everybody a little bit of grace there because the dude's
same hairline though. Same hairline of Hunter Renfrow and Brock Bowers.
That's true. You're right. Wow. The Raiders love balding white guys, I guess. I mean, usually that's their head coach. They bucked that trend, so they have to keep one on the field now, I guess. The Panthers game cannot baptize you. I don't care. I know that Bryce Young and Adam Thielen also had a good day on Sunday. I watched a lot of that game for whatever reason. Red zone, baby. But this is not sustainable. Shamari Connor is not a slot coverage guy. To your previous point, I'd give Chris Roland Wallace another go and just let's see how it looks, because maybe there's an answer there. This is where to the question that kicked off all of this. I will answer that question with a question that I'm asking you that I believe Nate Taylor asked me. Sterling, do you know who the 11 best football players on the Kansas City Chiefs defense are right now?
Are we going by what my gut feel is?
You don't have to even name them all. I'm asking like that question. Do you know the best 11 players on the Chiefs defense? And I think I do. I know my 4 linemen.
Okay, let's do it. Chris Jones.
Okay. George Karlaftis, Charles Omenihu, and
Turk Wharton, probably. Yep. Yeah, we'll go with those 4. Nick Bolton, Drew Tranquill, Leo Chenal.
Is Leo on the field with your best 11? Because he hasn't been.
If you're going best 11,
Spags would disagree. I'll get you Leo Chenal snap down here. Keep counting.
But if you're saying best 11 players,
yep, absolutely.
Those 3 are in the best 11 players. Okay. Trent McDuffie, that's 8. Yep. Justin Reed, which is 9.
Justin Reed, Brian Cook.
I guess Brian Cook, he's not played great. But yeah, I'll go Brian Cook. That's 10. I guess right now, Joshua Williams. So that'd be 11.
So we skip Shamari Connor, and so we're really in base personnel right there. You could pull Leo off the field and put Shamari Connor back on. That's your option. Go ahead. Just
from a player perspective, or as far as talent perspective, I get it. Different situations. I don't want Leo going up against Brock Bowers. I understand that. Or I don't want Leo. But if you're saying,
the last time that Leo Chenal got more than 45% of the snaps, 45, not even half.
San Fran.
Mm-hmm. San Francisco.
San Fran. Yeah.
60% in that game. Good pull. And then he has been under 50, under 45 every one of those games. He's been under a third of the snaps most games. The Chiefs are using him as a weapon. I don't think it's misuse necessarily, but this is where it starts to fall apart. I think Shamari Connor is one of your 11. I think Shamari Connor could be a starting safety on most football teams, or at least a frequently used third safety on the vast majority of teams. I don't want him covering guys in the slot, though. Okay, was Chris Rowan Wallace that guy? The other part of that exercise, perhaps, and to your point about Chanel, to where we're at with all those DBs, you might know who your favorite 11 are. Getting those 11 on the field at the same time is a totally different story because you are going to be exposed by these matchups here and there. So you need to have your top 15. And right now, some of the Chiefs' top 15 include part-time Leo, Joshua Williams, Najee Johnson, Shamari Connor, Mike Dana. And obviously he's in the rotation heavily. He outsnapped Omenihu, but Omenihu got half the snaps on Friday. That's something. That's a little silver lining for you. But it is a tricky spot to be in, and it really kills me that I still think I would go to the offense on this. But if I got to undo one injury of this Chiefs season, it would take me a long time to rule out Jalen Watson as my one big undo button. I think Rashee Rice is a Pro Bowler if he's healthy this year. I think, especially with Hollywood getting hurt, I think Rashee Rice is somewhere between. I think he's closer to 1,500 yards than he is to 1,000, or he's in that 1,250 range. And I still might just take back a good old fashioned CB2 because this Chiefs defense desperately misses him.
Yeah. All right. Let's end the show on a positive note because again, we've done a lot of complaining. Panthers fans and Raiders fans and all these other fans have got to. This is why they hate us. This is why they hate all Chiefs fans because we're
winning.
We're being and moaning about this as the Chiefs are 11-1. Still top 3 favorites to win the Super Bowl. So let's end positively. Okay, let's start with Charles Omenihu, him coming back, which I thought was a massive impact. You talked about it playing 50% of the snaps, but I think you saw the defensive line for the first time in a while really look good. Like it wasn't just Chris Jones, but obviously I think the addition of Charles helped. You just saw a more consistent pass rush. You saw a consistent pass rush and not just, he was so close. No, you actually saw him bring the quarterback down, which, again, Chiefs need to do. They've struggled this year with that. Normally they have been pretty good in the sack numbers, but they've had the pressures, but the pressures haven't amounted to a ton of positive, or should I say negative plays for the offense.
Sure.
So I think the addition of Charles Omenihu being that effective in his first game back, playing that many snaps, I was very impressed.
I think that's my biggest positive takeaway from that game. And to your point about pressures and sacks, a lot of times, and look, man, I understand how the Chris Jones discourse is gone, but you say, Chris Jones doesn't have any sacks in all these weeks in a row. What's wrong with Chris Jones? Not a damn thing. What's wrong is that no one else is there to push from the other side. It is a complementary sport. The pass rush in particular is all about complementary football. I know I'm a broken record because I've said this about the offensive line, the entire defense, and now the pass rush, but it's true. It's a great team sport for a reason. When you have one guy winning, that generally will create some pressures. It may create some hurries, but then if no one else has won their matchup, the quarterback can leave the pocket and find a second play down the field somewhere else. That's what's largely been happening to the Chiefs team. So seeing Omenihu just be pesky all day. I don't think he had a single eye-popping win off the edge, but be pesky and move your lineman back into the quarterback a little bit, and it begins to open things up for Chris Jones. And then I think later in the year, we're going to see Omenihu getting those one-on-ones and then winning them.
Yeah. Some more positives. DeAndre Hopkins. I almost want to say wide receivers in general right here because I think they've done a nice job. And this is, again, we haven't even talked about Hollywood, hopefully coming back relatively soon. Again, relatively, I think is a strong word, but, at some point in the end of the regular season. But you're seeing DeAndre Hopkins look like a legit wide receiver 1. Yes, he had the brutal drop. I understand. We're all going to point to that and say, it was horrible. That was frustrating. I was like, this is the Buccaneers game. I mean, Mahomes scrambled around in the pocket for like 12 seconds.
He's officially a Chief now. That's it. He just welcome to the team.
Dove. He did like the Damian Williams dive and it hit him. And I was like, oh my gosh, you kidding me? But D-Hop has been getting open a lot. And when he's not open, when Patrick trusts him, he still comes down with the ball. Even when he throws the ball, it's seemingly good things happen. The pass interferences, how many pass interferences has he drawn this year already? I mean, seriously, it may be the most pass interference I have seen from a Kansas City wide receiver since Tyreek Hill. Again,
he plays differently too. Because contact doesn't kill DeAndre Hopkins.
100%. And so I've been so thrilled with DeAndre So I think D-Hop needs a big shout out. I think Xavier Worthy, the growth, the snap count. But again, the fact that he's getting open, I think he would have a lot more yards if the offensive line could hold. It's putting Patrick in a tough situation. It's putting him in a tough situation. If Patrick had more time, who again, I think Patrick's really coming on the past few weeks, get ready to see some more explosive plays from Xavier on the deep ball, because if he has time, I think they're going to start connecting. Xavier is getting open, and that to me is huge. It's not last year where it goes, no wide receiver can get open. No one can get open. Xavier's always getting perpetually open. Even if sometimes they're not connecting, you can at least take a positive from that. So I'm thrilled with Xavier Worthy. Let me see some more positive. The kicker situation, right? Harrison Butker being injured, we thought, oh my gosh, hold on to your boots. What's going to happen? Hopefully I didn't jinx it. The kickers have been great. I know Matthew Wright missed a 56-yarder because it was short because of the cold and all that stuff.
And there was one they probably should have tried. They would have probably tried with Butker. And then that kickoff may have been his fault. That's the only other one. The kickoff getting returned. Special teams got their hand on the ball for this one too. But yeah.
But overall, I
made the kicks you expected him to make.
Schrader made his. Matthew Wright
Justin Tucker hasn't even done that this year. That counts for
Justin
something.
Tucker's been buns. He's been 2 scoops of ass, as Lauren says. Do you find this Justin Tucker situation funny or sad? Both. Sorry for being a cop out, because he was so good for so long, and then he did the thing with Patrick and Kelsey, and then I really disliked him.
Cast a spell on him from the booth, and he hasn't been the same since.
Because I do I really stopped liking the guy after that. Like I really did. Like I'm like you're being a D. You're being a D right now. Okay, if Patrick gets injured, I'm throwing hands with you. I'm getting my ass kicked. He's a big kicker, but
I mean, kicked for sure. Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, but yeah, and it's while he's only 35. He's not like as old as you think for a kicker. I mean, Morton Anderson kicked till he's 47. Adam Vinatieri was like 45. Again, those are gonna be Hall of Famers. Morton is a Hall of Famer, and I think we all assume Vinatieri is gonna be a Hall of Famer.
Justin Tucker is, Justin Tucker is about a month younger than Travis Kelce.
He's fallen off quicker than Travis, who plays a much more physical position.
I know. How about that?
Yeah. Noah Gray, as Kathy points out, Noah Gray stepping up. Noah Gray's been a nice addition, right? Now, there's been some concerns. Peyton Hendershot getting injured. Obviously, the injury to Jared Wiley, that's not ideal.
Run to Anthony Ferkser, dude. We are on tight end 5, right? 6? Yeah, Hendershot was 5.
6?
God, we're on
because Jody Fortson also got injured.
It's obviously Kelsey Gray, and then they've lost Wiley, Fortson, and Hendershot. So Anthony Ferkser was out there getting, I think, 7 snaps as tight end 6. Not how they drew it up.
Yeah. Zach Best said, does Sterling ever give out more than 2 scoops? Yeah, occasionally. Occasionally I'll give the old 3 scooper out there. Good.
Actually, I know it was a typo, but Zachary's initial comment was, does Sterling ever get out more than 2 scoops? You ever get out more than 2 scoops of ass at a time, Sterling? You're 2 scoop exclusive man.
Full moon. But yeah, any other positives you want to give out? Because I do think there have been some positives, even though we're all mired in talking about the utter disaster that is the 11-1 Kansas City Chiefs.
I think we've hit on most of them. I thought Pacheco looked pretty good. The running game did not look good, but he looked like himself out there, which is always something you're a little bit nervous about coming back from an injury. But no, I think Omenihu is the biggest one. I think you're right about both Hopkins and Worthy. And then the defense we've talked about so much. But to me, the biggest positive takeaway from that game is that Charles Omenihu got a big workload, looked like himself, and I think still has some room to continue getting more comfortable. So all good on those fronts.
And for all the concerns, I'll tell you this much. No team in the NFL wants to face Kansas City come playoff time. Whether it's real or not, there is a mystique about it. You're seeing it in the regular season. You know what? Shout out to Arrowhead. Shout out to the Chiefs fans who were at the game. You played a factor. You played a factor in the center and right guard snapping the ball early. Seriously, I'm not trying to be over dramatic here and sensationalize. Sometimes I think, home field advantage can be overblown. Not there. Shout out to Arrowhead, because you flustered that right guard, which flustered the center, who's a rookie, which flustered Aiden O'Connell. And you know who kept their cool? Nick Bolton. So I want to give a shout
It all
out to
comes back to making Nick Bolton the star of the game. Welcome to Tuesdays with Sterling Holmes, brought to you by MIZ.
ZOU, brother.
Go to hell.
No, appreciate everyone hanging out with us. Again, I hope you can all stay positive. Again, long season. Remember where you were last year. Remember Christmas. Remember when we all thought the season was over. Three-peat still on the table. Three-peat still looking good. Three-peat. I'm going to say it. Gonna happen. Brisco.
Because of Nick Bolton.
Well, of course. Nick Bolton's had a good season, by the way. I will. If you say Nick Bolton's not having a good year right now, I will come to your house at some point when I'm not busy because I got to go to I'm buying a house, everyone, and I'm redoing things, and it's a lot of things to redo, and I'm basically a general contractor right now, so I'm perpetually stressed. I'm going to probably lose my hair. I'm not a handyman like Brisco, but I'm trying my best, and it's a lot.
Maybe you should have been listening when I was giving great homeowner tips earlier.
Yeah, I don't know. No. Put new valves on all your plumbing devices, so that way they're good. If you haven't fixed your valves in the last 10 years, everyone put new valves on your plumbing. Okay, might save you in the long run.
Wish I could turn off the valve for this show.
Well, appreciate all the reviews you guys have been giving. Patrick's going to hit some of those on Thursday. Maybe I'll hit some tomorrow with Adam Best. I do really appreciate all the comments and reviews you guys give. I've seen a lot on Apple. I use Apple reviews and podcasts. So every once in a while, I'll take a look at that. And I do appreciate you guys so much for leaving the 5 stars as well as the comments. We will hit all of those. Brisco, you can listen to more of him in about a half hour right there on Only Weird Games. And Only Weird Games, it has been for Kansas City. You can follow me on the X at HomestretchKC. Appreciate Richard behind the glass. Without Richard, none of this could happen because I am so untechnologically savvy. Yes, me. Can't do anything. I'm basically 95. I'll see you tomorrow with Adam Best. Until then, we are out.